So first up, I'm going to take a look at the pre-title sequence, so the Mexico sequence, and give my thoughts on that and comment on any speculation as well. So first of all, the big news: the gun barrel's back, in the right place. Having been shifted to the end of Quantum of Solace and Skyfall, it is back where it belongs, thankfully. Obviously Mendes had his reasons for why it wasn't at the beginning of Skyfall and chucked it at the end instead. It made some storytelling sense at the end of Quantum of Solace, with Bond finally becoming Bond and putting the past behind him. But now it's back. We're back to a classic Bond film. It's all good. Order is restored. So that's the first big thing, and the rousing James Bond theme, which we haven't properly had to open a Bond theme since 2002's Die Another Day, was a welcome return. And I did have that bit ruined for me from a review and from various forums. They posted it, but it was good. So next up we have, unfortunately, not the gun barrel dissolving into the action as we've had in previous films. Instead, fading out to black, and we have the words, "The dead are alive," I believe. I think it's something like that. I will be watching it again tomorrow to remind myself, but something along those lines. And it is a nice theme for the rest of the film, not only immediately following, when we get transported to the Day of the Dead festival in Mexico, but obviously the whole idea of Spectre making a return could be argued fits into that theme as well. So it was a bit of a strange start to a Bond film, past the gun barrel, but it was a nice artistic choice, maybe. There is room for some artistic development in Bond films, as was witnessed directly afterwards, and we had that amazing 4-minute tracking shot, which has been a talking point everywhere in reviews and on forums. It certainly made its mark for all the right reasons. So the first of its kind really in a Bond film, a long tracking shot like that, and some have even been declaring it's one of Sam Mendes' best shots ever in all of his films. So we obviously follow the action through the festival. Bond gets his eyes on his target, and then we follow him and Estrella to their hotel room via a lift. They do claim this was all done in one shot, but I can't see it personally, but if they say so, then we'll have to take their word for it. But it is seamlessly put together however they did it, so it's a pretty amazing feat. And it didn't just stop there. We had a nice smooth transition where Daniel Craig quickly changed into his suit and walked along the rooftops, as you do, en route to taking out his target. And this is where I made my first speculative mistake, when I commented on Bond's powerful gun when the building blew up. Obviously that was caused by him hitting the explosive device, which makes a lot more sense. But still stands that it did give his gun a powerful shot, and took a whole building down, a whole block, I think is described by M. So a lot of comments there have been made of the CGI. I personally didn't see much wrong with it. I've seen worse. Die Another Day. But really, there's nothing wrong with that. They're not really going to collapse a building on Daniel Craig. You've got to use some element of CGI. And for the most part, they do things for real, so I'll let them off any bits of CGI they do need to rely on. So here is where we've got our first glimpse of the humour in the film. Not only is parting words to Estrella, but we also had something on the right side of slapstick, whereby Craig grabs hold of a light fitting before falling down, apparently to a rough fall, and happens to just fall down onto a sofa. We get a nice look from Craig, a chuck away of the light fitting, and off he goes. So that's as close to the Roger Moore slapstick humour that I think we're ever going to get in a Craig film. But it was welcome. It wasn't in your face. It worked well, and I quite liked it. So then we have the obligatory chase between Bond and his target. My only criticism here is it has featured a lot in Craig's films, every single one in fact, because obviously we've had Craig chasing the bomber at the beginning of Casino Royale through Mombasa. We then obviously had him following, name leaves me now, but the MI6 A Mole at the beginning of Quantum of Solace through the Palio Horse Festival. And we also had him chasing Patrice through Istanbul in Skyfall, as well as chasing Silver through the London Underground. So we've had a lot of foot chases and bike chases. But this was necessary. It wasn't all about the foot chase this time. It was about leading to the helicopter fight, which was obviously the key moment of this sequence. Some people complained as well that it wasn't that action-packed because there was some walking involved. Now, this was an artistic decision. I did see an interview where Sam Mendes did mention that on the day of that shot, when they were filming that sequence, Daniel Craig had an injury on his knee. So he quickly got someone to draft in a number of police officers in Mexico to line the streets so that the walking was necessary. So obviously it is going to look a bit suspicious if you have two people chasing after one another in the middle of a festival surrounded by police officers. So it was an artistic choice, but I think it again worked well for that reason. And it's all because Daniel Craig couldn't actually sprint at all, and they're not going to delay that kind of shoot with that many extras on the location. So then we obviously have them sprinting through the crowds. A nice smack in the face of a henchman from Craig, and then he dives straight onto the plane to commence that amazing sequence on the helicopter. So my main criticism again of this part was Craig's kind of apparent disregard for the crowds below, because he goes straight for the pilot of the helicopter, which is probably not a good move. Yes, he's a bad guy because he is aiding the bad guy in escaping, but that's the least of your worries really at that point. You should really take down the bad guy first and then worry about the pilot and keep the helicopter under control. But he dives straight for him, surrounded by a crowd of people. My only explanation for that possibly is to prevent the pilot taking off and flying above the crowd to make the damage a whole lot worse. But I would think if the helicopter lost control of the ground, we would still have a lot of sliced people from the blades. But there we go. That's just my viewpoint there. But off the helicopter goes, and we have an amazing sequence with the helicopter seemingly out of control above the crowds. And I do like the shots where they pull back, and you can see it is done for real. The helicopter is flying around this crowd of people, so it works very well. I like the action on the outside of the helicopter as well, with Craig and his target grappling on the outside, and it certainly looks like he's in danger from that. Obviously there is some more CGI work on their faces there, so the stunt doubles blend in to look like Craig and the other actor. Now I do like the kind of nonchalant kind of kick out of the helicopter as the bad guy dies, and you don't see any aftermath of that either. Then it's a case of taking on the pilot. We have obviously nice stunt work there, several barrel rolls. So obviously the trailer did make a big deal of the barrel roll in the helicopter. We actually had several of them in the end, and none of them really were made a big deal of in the actual filming. I think the main part of that sequence was when the helicopter went vertical, and we did have a kind of, I hope it was it was intended, but we had a kind of slide whistle, the man with the golden gun kind of reference when the helicopter was vertical and did a kind of flip in the air, very much resembling Roger Moore's flip in the car in The Man with the Golden Gun. And with the amount of references in Spectre to previous films, it probably was intended based on that. Then obviously we get Craig to again nonchalantly just kick the pilot out of the helicopter as well, and off he goes. Again, no aftermath scene. And then we get a very similar again a reference to GoldenEye, with Craig, a plummeting helicopter, having to pull it back up in time to avoid the crowd. So whereas Pierce Brosnan was fighting for just his life and crashing into the mountains in his plane, Craig is obviously having to save a hell of a lot of people on the ground as well. He makes it, and we have a massive flourish of the James Bond theme, and off he goes to pilot out of Mexico and out of trouble. Then we get a glimpse of the ring, which he conveniently managed to take off the target before he kicked him out of the plane. And then we have Sam Smith's theme blending into the music of that sequence, and it fits in quite nicely there, and I'll talk about that in another video. So it was a nice sequence, and as I mentioned in my initial reactions video, I think it's probably the best pre-title sequence of the whole series. It has everything you need, and that tracking shot at the beginning is just perfect, and then we have a nice action sequence to kick off the film. And as some people have said, that is probably a sequence that most films would save for the final reel, the final showdown at the end, whereas a Bond film, they got money in hand, they just chuck it right at you at the beginning to kick things off properly. So those are my thoughts there. It's a brilliant sequence, and one that will stand the test of time and will go down as a legendary pre-title sequence, I think. So at some point this week I'll do a video reviewing the opening titles. I'll need to watch them again tomorrow to give some more thorough feedback. But again, I do like those, and they did fit in well to the film. Then I'll kind of break up my videos into the locations of the film, so I'll focus on Rome, Morocco, and London at the end as well, just to give my thoughts on those. So, thank you for watching.